Welcome to another episode of the Real Life PMP podcast, where we delve into the world of project management and explore the diverse paths that lead us here. I'm Crystal Richards, your host, and in this 4-part series, I am thrilled to have a very special guest and dear friend, Lori Schoenhard, joining us. Lori's journey into project management is as unique as it is inspiring. Our conversation sheds light on the unexpected yet fascinating ways that many of us take to become project managers. We discuss how our diverse backgrounds contribute to our effectiveness in the field and highlight the universal need for project management skills in every industry. Whether you're an experienced PM or just curious about the profession, you'll find this discussion both enlightening and engaging. So without further ado, let's dive into the first part of our conversation with Lori. Lori, it is so amazing to have you on this call. You and I have been going back and forth about like setting up some time and trying to figure out our topic. And I think even still, it's going to be fun and organic topic. And I think just a treat for the listeners of the Real PMP podcast, Real Life PMP podcast. I guess I should know my own podcast. But let me get things started. I love to ask this question. Do you remember how we met?
I do remember how we met, Crystal. So you were presenting at the Boston University PM conference several years ago.
Right.
And I was an attendee there. I was going to grad school at BU and flew out to Boston to go to this PM conference, which had Jeff Sutherland. It had a lot of amazing speakers that year. And so I'm going to spend the investment. I'm going to go to this conference. And you were a speaker and you were talking about, I even remember the topic. It was office politics.
Yes.
And I thought to myself, I need to go to this class because I think as PM leaders, it's extremely important, not only to understand the technical aspects of being a PM, but then how to work with people, how to navigate these situations. And everyone, no matter how many years of experience you have, need to brush up on this topic. So you were a presenter. And I sat in the back row in the class, just, listened, interacted with people in the class. And I thought to myself, oh, she's someone I should speak to. And my imposter syndrome was strong. I was like, I'm not going to reach out to her. I'm not going to talk to her. And this must have been like 2017, 2018, I think that you presented at
pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID, the pre-days. And so, a few months went by and I thought, I'm going to reach out. And so I did on LinkedIn and sent you a message. And from there, it's history. I think we just kind of hit it off and we've talked so many times and collaborated on things, talked about things. And I really do consider you a friend. And I'm so happy that you were there. And I know that we connected at that BU conference.
Oh, I love it. And you know what? And through the, it seems like with COVID, you forget, and it seems like it's more than 3 years. So you forget all the connections. And I was thinking it was a different way. And I'm like, that's right. We met and you're a graduate of the BU program. Shout out to that program. And really great professors there and getting me connected. So that's a great, because because I love asking this question to see, do we recall it the same way? So I love it. I love it. Well, tell us, so I just jumped right in. What's your 30-second elevator explanation as to who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I have been in IT space for 20 years. I've been primarily in the program and project management delivery space. I've had the opportunity and the pleasure to work for a wide variety of size companies, from small family-owned businesses to mid-size, so SMBs, all the way up to Fortune 500. And even within that size of experience of working for different companies, I've also had the pleasure of working in different domain spaces. So I've worked with digital agencies, SaaS companies, retail, manufacturing, a number of these spaces. And I really, truly love what I do. I love the PM space that we all live in. I think it's a wonderful community, and I'm so happy to give back on this podcast.
That's awesome. And one of the questions I'm going to make sure we ask, because you are one of those unique folks that has the degree. So you're not just going in, jumping in, getting the certification, but you also have a breadth and depth of really power punch certification. So I'm going to make sure that I ask you later about that. But before I do, What's a fun fact about yourself that is not on your resume?
Fun fact, I'm going to go way back in the time machine, Crystal, way back in the time machine. My high school job, yes, many years ago, let's not talk about how many years ago that was. My high school job is I was a tour guide, a historical tour guide for a Victorian mansion in Wisconsin. My accent will start coming out really thick here pretty soon. In Wisconsin, and I dressed up in 1890s clothing for
Get
about three
out of
summers in a
here.
row. And people say, what's your favorite job you ever had? That is in the top three favorite jobs I ever had. I was really debating whether to go into museum studies as a career or music, which we can talk about the path to where I got today. But it was a hard decision to make. But that's something that's definitely not on my resume, but I think there was a lot of lessons learned about that type of job that I had, public speaking, learning,
Mhm.
dealing with people, communication, that I carried on throughout my whole life. But that is definitely not on my resume.
That, and that's really interesting. I mean, let's face it, in project management, sometimes we do have to role play. It's
Oh,
like
right.
I
We have to
and
pretend.
sing, right? I've got to like, okay, I'm not going to be the barracuda. I'm going to just be a diplomatic person, and
Right.
that takes a lot. So you definitely got a leg up over a lot of us with that role
Mm.
and just
Hmm.
dressing up because you do sometimes have to put on this mask when
A
you
persona.
are right.
Hmm. Hmm.
Exactly, when you're dealing with some of these tough folks. Well, since you already started with it,
Yeah.
I would love to hear how you got into project management and the honor of sharing. I'll share a little bit of how I got into because I don't know if I ever shared that with you. So because you
No.
were leading down that path about how you got into project management, the music route. That
Yes.
I want to
Yes.
hear.
Sure. I can go first. So, as I said, I was debating whether to go the museum studies route or the music education route. And, music's always been in my life when I was in, junior high, high school, extremely passionate about it. And I decided I want to be a music teacher. So I wanted to be a band director. And I, went to a liberal arts college here in the Midwest, really well known for their music ed program, Luther College in Decorah, Iowa. So shout out to Luther. And did that, and did my 4-year degree, and realized, went into student teaching. So I'd been what, 21, 22 years old, I think, Crystal. And again, I dedicated years to my life to this, and then realized I don't want to do this anymore. Well, it was an interesting time as well. It was in the fall of 2001,
Okay.
you know, 9/11 or 2011. Sorry, my timelines. But it was an interesting time for me personally. And I just realized this is not something I want to do. What am I going to do now? And I talk about it's my midlife crisis when I was 22 years old. So now what? And so there was a lot of pivoting that happened for me to realize, well, I need to make money. I need to have a job. So I transitioned working for a music store. I sold percussion equipment to professional orchestras for a time. I then moved to working for an insurance company, working in an underwriting department, and then going, I can't do this for the rest of my life. So now what? And I'm like, I need to go back to school. Oh, I'm going to try marketing. I've always loved entrepreneurship, owning a business, and all of that comes with that. Well, I still had a lot of debt from college,
Right.
right? Private school is expensive. And so I needed a job along with going to school full time. And it's one of those circumstances where you are and things happen to you. So every day I would walk in the skywalk from the office at the insurance company to the parking garage, and I would pass a website development company. I never gave it a thought, right?
Hmm.
But one day they had a sign on their door that said, "We are looking for a bookkeeper and a front desk receptionist part-time." I'm like, this is perfect. I applied. They hired me. I was taking marketing courses, HTML courses, and it just clicked. I loved it. And then I was talking to my employer about what I was doing, and they're like, show us more, show us more, show us more. And
This is
then they
at the web
started
developer
testing me.
company.
Yes, then they started
Okay.
testing me. Now, this is one
Wow.
semester in. So I started there. I got married in July of 2004, started this job, and started marketing classes in August. And by December, they had offered me a full-time job
Oh my gosh.
working for this website development company, small family owned business, taught me I'm extremely grateful for that role and that opportunity. I was there for 7 years and they taught me so many things: object-oriented programming. I was a full stack web developer. I learned SQL. I wore many hats, such as project management, account management, training. The education thing came back through, that throughput came back through. So I was there for a while, and that's really how I transitioned into tech. That is the first role. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, that's the first role that I show professionally in the IT space. But that is how it happened. It was the right place at the right time, combined with grit and determination, putting yourself out there, taking some calculated risks,
Yeah.
and having someone who's extremely supportive. It all just kind of came together.
All the necessary ingredients to even be a successful project manager, right? The things you said: grit, right place, right time, stretching yourself. And, the support is also just as necessary. And I know sometimes that's been a struggle for some folks in the field, is that they're in this project manager role. So thank goodness for that. God, as I like to say.
I know.
That is amazing.
But I'm not going to say it was smooth sailing. There were many, many challenges.
Sure.
I think that was something you and I were going to talk about: the challenges that people face, especially early in their careers. I talk about imposter syndrome again, but I think it's important to talk about and be authentic to ourselves. Those first 2 years transitioning into tech were hard, right?
In what way?
For me, it was a mindset thing where I don't belong here. I don't know if I should have done this. Was this a big mistake? Because it was hard to learn. I'd never taken computer science classes. The highest math I think I took was algebra 2. It was just, I had the music background, and I think that's what really pushed me through, was that left brain, right brain aspect of getting into tech. And then I think transferable skills from the PM space really pushed me through. But there was many times where I was like, I don't know if I made the right decision. And I think I just stuck with it, and I pushed through that mindset to get past it. But it wasn't easy. That mindset change wasn't easy.
And was it also a case of you were the only, so whether it was like the only married person, only mom, only woman in the group of 10? Because at the time,
yes, all of those things. I was the first full-time woman who had a child that was employed there. So I had a month off, I think, for maternity leave. That was challenging, very challenging. First time mom. And, again, it was a company, I think, of 15, 18 people. So they didn't fall under certain rules. But anyhow, that was challenging. There was another woman that worked there that was the owner's wife, or she was part of the ownership, but I was one of the only women that worked there. And then I think, again, just pushing back on I'm learning this technology. They've been doing this a long time. I really had to prove myself over and over again that I belong there and I was there. And I think that's also what pushed me along to leave. I was there for 7 years. I had moved up from extremely entry level, a front desk receptionist, to a senior developer PM on that team in that 7 years. And then in my mind, I'm like, all right, I've grown a lot. I've learned a lot. What's next? I'm going to leave this situation. I chose to leave and work for corporate America for 2 years after that as a BA QA person. And then the career progresses. But I think it's sometimes you get in these situations, you grow and learn so much, and then you're like, okay, but what's next? And I think that's in my mind. All right, I'm not one to sit there and plateau and sit on my laurels and be like, all right, this is great. I'm just going to clock in, clock out. What's next? What do I need to learn next?
Oh, I think it's interesting, though, the fact that you were there for 7 years. For some people, you were like, going to retire there, like 7 years.
Oh, there's people that are still there that were there when I was there.
Wow,
but they're happy.
That is amazing.
But they're happy, and I'm happy for them, and that they're okay, right? And they're perfectly fine. But that's not for me. That wasn't for me.
I get that. Well, in the spirit of sharing, because I don't know if I've ever shared in the podcast kind of how I got my start, and wanted to perhaps share for your interest. It was similar, but also it seemed like I was going down that path anyway. And I would say my first awareness, but I had to look back, was back in grad school
Mhm.
where we had a comprehensive exam, and we were trying to figure out how to like house all the information we need. And I just took it upon myself. I said, I'll take care of it. And I set up a
Mhm.
website. I set up like
Mhm.
these sections. I assigned delegated tasks to my classmates. Who's going to be
Mhm.
doing this? And I still didn't know the term or the role project manager, because in the
Mhm.
program, I was meant to be a health administration, right? Health
Mhm.
administrator. And I'm going to go in there and do the operational work. And after a year into doing like a fellowship, so it's like a postgraduate like version of internship, I decided I wanted to try something different, because just the jobs that were kind of presented to me, I wasn't all that thrilled about them. And I kind of
Mhm.
pushing the envelope, I went and interviewed outside of the facility, and I got a consulting job. And in that consulting job, they're giving me Gantt charts, reports, still
Mhm.
never, I was a consultant, not a project manager.
Mhm.
Little did I know. And, had closure letters for our clients when we wrapped up, had all the reports and spreadsheets and Gantt charts. And that was a very heavy travel job. So I decided to go internal system. So all my jobs were primarily in the space that I loved and got a grad degree in healthcare
Mhm.
administration, healthcare consulting. And it was finally when I meandered my way into federal contracting, and my
Mhm.
boss said, if you want to be primary or key personnel on this government contract, you need to get your PMP. And I was like, what's that? And are you paying for it? And so he's like, look,
Right.
and my position was consultant, I think, and senior consultant, now that it's coming back to me. And I remember sitting in the first couple of hours of that PMP boot camp class thinking to myself, we don't do any of this stuff, but I'll take the
Mhm.
exam, do my
Mhm.
best. And
Mhm.
it was, for me, it wasn't that far removed from knowing what you need to know to pass an exam. But
Mhm.
some of my classmates who had been project managers for years
Mhm.
um, fought with the instructor for like the half a day. And she's like, look, I'm just here to teach you to pass this exam. What you need to do in your real
Mhm.
work, that's what you need to do, but this is what you need to know to pass the exam. And then
Mhm.
that clicked for them, and they minimize some of the fighting and arguing with her.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
I remember kind of being really intrigued, because I am very much a process person.
Mhm.
And gosh, I would say maybe another 5, 6 years after getting the PMP and working as a PMP project manager on a couple of government contracts, I had decided to start on my own. And the irony is that I started my business as just general training company. And
Mhm.
I had partnered with a training company for teaching PMP bootcamp, because I remember with my experience, I was like, I think I could do that. That would be fun. And from
Mhm.
there on out, it was just like, I just found this knack of like simplifying what sometimes is just really like,
The
this is too much.
complex.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
people started calling me the project management lady. And I'm like, maybe there's something to this. So the rest is history.
The rest is
But
history.
it,
That's
when I
so
look back in my
interesting.
career, and the funny thing is that, right, you and I both, as we get into, mentoring, coaching folks, they're like,
Mhm.
I've never had the title of project manager. And honestly, for me, in all of my project management life, I've never had the specific title of project
Mhm.
manager. And I
Mhm.
think that's where, you and I, with our stories, we did project management. It's not until the last, 3 years that the title project manager, project director is
Mhm.
really kind of, blossomed, if you will, or blown up, exploded. But
Right.
we're all doing project management, some more intense than others, some in tech, some
Mhm.
in music education, healthcare administration. But project managers are needed, and
they are. They're never
Every
going to go
aspect.
away. That role is never going to go away. And we can get into the whole AI conversation all we want.
Oh my gosh.
But this role, we could do a whole podcast about that, Crystal. But this role is so important, right?
It is.
That it'll never go away. And I want to circle back on something too. It's, that's where it's, you don't have the title, you don't know what it is, but you really enjoy it. And, I'll harken back to my college days again. My college job was, I worked for the music education department. So the department that supports all the staff, the faculty. And then we were a large, again, music schools, and we held a number of festivals across the Midwest area. And my role was, I was the assistant to the band director, and I helped organize all these festivals and summer music camps. Guess what? Project management. Project management was my job for 3 years in college, and I absolutely loved it. If someone told me this was a job, I would have been like, all right, I'm all in, let's go.
Right.
But I didn't know. And so, I was in charge of how many stands do we need? How does this person get from the airport? What music needs to get sent to what school, what band director has questions, you're fielding all these things all the time.
Yeah.
You're creating a schedule. It's project management.
It's project management. And that wraps up the first part of our conversation with Lori. I hope you enjoyed learning about her accidental yet incredible journey into project management as much as I did, from the music education field, no less. It's always fascinating to see how our unique backgrounds can lead us to new and exciting career paths. In our next episode, I'll continue my chat with Lori, diving deeper into her experiences as a remote project manager before working remotely was even a thing. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Thank you for tuning in to Real Life PMP Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with your network. Your support helps me bring more inspiring stories and valuable insights to project managers everywhere. Until next time, this is Crystal Richards signing off. Keep managing those projects, and remember, PMs are needed everywhere.